So here's what I would do if I had an emotional eating episode. So if you're new here, welcome. My name is Michelle. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist specializing in emotional eating. And I want to share with you what I would do if I had an emotional eating episode and what I share with clients when they have an emotional eating episode. So years ago, I was struggling with emotional eating and I tried all of the things I could get my hands on. I tried all the diets. I went to see a therapist for a couple of years, working on my issues around food and binging, restricting, body shame, and just feeling out of control. I saw a personal trainer. I saw a nutritionist. I saw a chiropractor. I tried many things. And when none of the things worked to help me really sustainably deal with my emotional eating or even dent into it, I threw everything out the window and I had to figure out step by step what I would need or how to actually resolve this pattern. And so I literally threw everything out the window, moved to Korea for a fresh start, and my emotional eating intensified. So I really had to figure this out. And I started to find resources, and step by step, I started to create a process to resolve my emotional eating. And this is what I teach to clients inside of the Emotional Eating Evolution program. And so I want to share with you the process of when clients come into the program, what we're doing to resolve their emotional eating. The first step really is to know that you need something more than willpower to resolve your emotional eating. This is important because we've been sold that we just need more willpower, but willpower is 5% and our pattern, emotional eating, is a coping mechanism and it's 95% power. So if you think about it, our mind is 100% and our willpower, our conscious mind is only 5% and our subconscious is 95%. And it has a lot of power. And so our emotional eating, when triggered, it's going to be more powerful than our willpower. And so we need to recognize this and work with this pattern from this viewpoint. And this is going to help us start going into the layers that are going to help us resolve our emotional eating. So the first step that I say to clients when they come in, they say, I'm emotionally eating. We start looking and helping them resolve their emotional eating in a step-by-step process so we can really discern that emotional eating episode. A lot of my clients, when they come in, just like me, were dieters, had diet mentality, restricted a lot, judged themselves on how they ate, didn't know how to connect with true hunger in their body, and so they kept judging themselves. So the first thing we do inside of the program is, and what you would need to do, is to learn to start nourishing your body. You need to start nourishing your body because if you are restricting food, that creates binging. And that's a trigger for emotional eating. So we want to make sure you're eating enough throughout the day, you're digesting well, that you are connected to food and hunger signals in your body, and that you can start discerning true from emotional hunger, because true hunger looks differently than emotional hunger. True hunger is coming from the body, from the stomach, whereas emotional hunger is coming from the mind and a trigger, and it's very instant. And so that's the first step we teach the clients, is really looking at how are you nourishing yourself? Is this true hunger? Is this emotional hunger? And if you want to learn that lesson yourself, I have a free guide called What Are You Truly Hungry For? You can download it below at the link in the description box. But this is essentially going to help you start learning, what does hunger look like? And this is empowering because as emotional eaters, we tend to think we're hungry all the time and we judge ourselves. And so we want to look at, this is true hunger, this is emotional hunger, and this helps us to see where our pattern is being triggered. So this is the first step that we look at when you come into the program. How are you nourishing yourself? I've had clients in the program who are nutritionists, who know a lot about nutrition, and they have learned something new here because our way of looking at nutrition is not connected to our body. We're looking at the diets outside of us, whether they are healthy or not. We need to be connecting to our body, see how our body feels, how much food we need, and is it digesting well? Is it truly satisfying our physical hunger? And then looking at where are our emotional eating triggers. The second step that we go into is, now that we're connecting back to food and we can start discerning our emotional eating and some of our emotional eating triggers, we're going to start looking at our body. We want to look at, what our body needs in terms of movement, in terms of sleep, in terms of acceptance. A lot of the times with my clients, just like I did, they have a lot of body shame. And so because of the body shame, they're not accepting themselves, and that leads to wanting to restrict food in order to, lose weight or have a different body to accept themselves. And they think that's where they need to be, because we tend to have a lot of body shame because we think if we look a certain way, we'd finally be accepted. And that shame triggers emotional eating. So we need to be looking at, how are we being with our body? Are we accepting of our body? Are we understanding our body? Do we recognize that if we have a lot of movement one day, we might be more hungry the next day? Every day is not going to be the same, because otherwise we're going to feel a lot of shame, and we're going to be triggered into our emotional eating around our body. If we're not sleeping enough, it's going to trigger us into emotional eating because of creating more stress in our body, and that's going to impact our hunger levels. And so we need to be looking at all of these factors. So if we are nourishing ourselves well, great. We can tell where our emotional eating is. If we are connected to our body and honoring it now, we are reducing some of those emotional eating triggers. And here we can start connecting back to our body. When we're emotional eaters, we're very disconnected to our body. And so the more we can accept and understand our body, the less shame that creates and the less emotional eating triggers. The third step that we're going to be going through and moving through when we're in the emotional eating evolution program is really around our emotional wellness. Now that we've looked at some of the triggers, and we have resolved some of the triggers, so accepting and understanding our body, nourishing our body, because when we're in a diet mentality or we're shaming our body, that triggers emotional eating. And so here with emotional wellness, when we find those true emotional eating episodes, or they're now, they're really, really deeply ingrained, we start getting into the root of this pattern. So we might have some roots around our body and body shame that we might need to look at. And when we're triggered into our emotional eating, it's usually because some emotion has been triggered that we're not aware of, and we automatically go to food. So here we are using those triggers to go deeper, get to the root of this pattern in the body somatically. We use a trauma-informed process, trauma-informed somatic psychotherapy, and we use this process to get to the root of this pattern in the body. Clients also have their own meditation. So we're doing the deeper work. We're getting into the pattern in the body, in the subconscious. This is not about willpower, so that we can get to the root, resolve it, and start meeting our true needs. Because the pattern, the event that created your emotional eating, is unresolved. And so you've been using food to cope with these unresolved emotions, and we need to resolve those emotions and create a new way of being with them, and then meeting your true needs to resolve this pattern at this deeper level, to sort of pull out the anchor and the roots that have been holding you in this pattern. And so once we get that event and we're clear, this is the trigger, and we get into that event, that's how we start resolving this. If we were to just jump in and start resolving every emotional eating episode you had, we would be missing the mark, because sometimes it's because we haven't been understanding how to nourish our body. We need to know how to nourish our body and connect with our body and sort of understand that on a conscious level before we do deeper trauma work, because it's not really about that. Emotional eating is a coping mechanism, and at the root, at the seed, it's because we didn't have our needs met of being seen and heard and validated. We weren't helped and guided to move through our uncomfortable emotions. And so that created this coping mechanism, and that's really the deeper root cause. But then from that, we thought in order to get the acceptance, we had to have a certain body size. And we were also using food to cope and soothe ourselves. So we are using food in a dysfunctional way. We're trying to manipulate our body in a dysfunctional way. And that's all wrapped into this core. So we have to look at all of the layers to really resolve this pattern at that deeper level. So that is how you would resolve this pattern. You have to look at these 3 layers interconnectedly, looking at creating a new way of being around food, your body, and your emotions, but doing the deeper work to unhook you from these dysfunctional patterns we've created, these coping mechanisms we've created. And so this is a process. And so it is not to scare you, but if you've tried all of the surface solutions, the diets and the pills and the surgeries and even talk therapy, and you haven't gotten the results you want, it's because you need a different process. And so if you have any questions about what I've shared today, please let me know. If you want to dive deeper, you can start off with the first lesson of discerning true from emotional hunger. This is going to help you understand your pattern and start seeing your triggers. And that's going to be the first step in resolving this pattern. If you're interested in joining the Emotional Eating Evolution program, you can also find out more at the link below. This is a 12-week container. It's a step-by-step process that goes more in depth into the 3 layers of food, body, and your emotions to help you move through and finally get to that ease, peace, and confidence around food and in your body that you're searching for. So if you're interested in that, you can find out more below. I just want to say thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and I look forward to sharing more with you, and I hope you have a great day.